I remember the way the word landed in my chest, heavy and hot, like it had weight. I remember thinking that if words could bruise, that one would leave a mark shaped exactly like him. The bailiff called the room to order, and everyone stood. I stood too, because that's what you do when you're told to, even when your knees feel like they're trying to quit your body. I smoothed my skirt, the one I'd bought because it looked serious enough to make me feel protected, and I told myself not to look at him. But I did. My father was staring straight ahead, jaw tight, hands folded like he was at church. He didn't look at me. He hadn't really looked at me in years, not the way a father looks at a daughter, more like the way someone looks at a locked door they're convinced they own the key to. The courtroom smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. The air hummed with that low, nervous electricity you only feel in places where decisions get made that can't be undone. I sat at the table with my attorney, my fingers laced together so tightly my knuckles were white. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded, because lying with your face is easier than explaining with your mouth. This wasn't supposed to be happening. That thought kept looping in my head like a skipped record. None of this was supposed to be happening. The shop wasn't supposed to be in question. My car definitely wasn't. I had built that place with my hands, with nights that turned into mornings, with weekends that disappeared into spreadsheets and supply runs and exhaustion. And the car, God, the car was the one thing I'd bought brand new, the first thing that had ever been fully mine. But my father had a way of rewriting history out loud, and if he said it confidently enough, people leaned in, people listened. The judge came in. An older woman with silver hair pulled back tight, glasses perched low on her nose. She settled into her chair, scanned the room, and I felt that strange flicker of hope you get when someone looks like they might actually see you. "Be seated," she said. We sat. My father's lawyer stood first, a thin man with a voice like he'd never had to raise it in his life. He adjusted his tie and started talking about family obligations, about verbal agreements, about how my shop had been started with support from my father. Support. I almost laughed. Almost. I watched the judge's pen move as she took notes. Scratch, pause, scratch again. My heart matched the rhythm. Then my father stood. He didn't need to, not really, but he wanted to. He always wanted to. He cleared his throat. "Your Honor," he said, and there it was again, that calm confidence. "My daughter has done very well for herself. I'm proud of her. But the truth is, that business exists because of me. I encouraged it. I advised her. I lent her my car in the beginning. Without my guidance, there would be no shop. The car she drives now was purchased during a period when she was still financially dependent on me." He finally looked at me then, just for a second. "And so," he continued, "it's only right that what is his, what is mine, be recognized as such." The words tangled. His, mine. He didn't even correct himself. My stomach dropped. My lawyer stood, steady as a wall. She talked about bank statements, about incorporation documents, about titles and timelines and facts. Real things, solid things. I clung to them like they were life rafts. When she finished, the room went quiet. The judge leaned back in her chair. She took off her glasses, she scanned the room, and I felt that strange flicker of hope you get when someone looks like they might actually see you. "Miss Carter," she said. I swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor. You started this business how old?" 26. "And you're how old now?" 32. She nodded. "And your father's name is listed anywhere on the incorporation paperwork?" "No, Your Honor." "On the lease?" "No." "On the vehicle title?" "No." My father shifted. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. A small movement, a crack. The judge turned her gaze to him. "Mr. Carter," she said, "you've made a very confident statement today." He straightened. "Because it's true." She tapped the file. "Confidence is not evidence." The room felt like it inhaled. She looked back down, flipped a page, then looked up again, this time directly at him. You declared in this court that your daughter's shop and her car are yours. On what legal basis are you making that claim?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I felt something shift inside me then, just slightly, like a knot loosening. His lawyer leaned in, urgently whispered something, but he didn't respond. "I'm her father," he said. "I sacrificed for her. I supported her. That should count for something." The judge held his gaze. "It does," she said, "emotionally, not legally." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from reacting. She glanced at me again. "Miss Carter," she said, "did your father ever give you money toward the purchase of the vehicle in question?" "No, Your Honor." "Did he co-sign the loan?" "No." "Did he make any payments?" "No." "Did he ever ask to be listed as an owner?" "No." She nodded slowly, like she was assembling something piece by piece. My father's face was tight now. The calm was slipping. "You can't deny I helped her," he said, his voice louder. "You can't deny she wouldn't be here without me." The judge's expression didn't change, but something sharpened behind her eyes. "Sir," she said, "no one is denying your role in her life, but this court is not here to reward parenting. It's here to determine ownership." She paused, looked down, then up. "And ownership," she said, "is not inherited by proximity." My breath caught. She turned another page. "There is something here I find interesting." My father leaned forward. "So do I," his lawyer said quickly. The judge raised a hand, silencing him. She looked directly at my father again. "You stated that your guidance and advice were instrumental in the success of this business, yet there are emails in this file, your emails, where you explicitly advised your daughter to not open this shop." My heart slammed against my ribs. My father froze. The judge continued, her voice even. "You warned her it would fail. You told her she was irresponsible. You told her, and I quote, 'Don't come crying to me when this blows up in your face.'" The words echoed in the room, pulled from the past and dropped right between us. I remember that email. I remember reading it at my kitchen table, hands shaking, wondering if he was right. My father's mouth opened, closed. The judge leaned back. "So I'm struggling," she said, "to reconcile your claim of ownership with your documented opposition." Silence. I could feel my eyes burning, but I didn't let the tears fall. I wasn't going to give him that. The judge's gaze lingered on him for a long moment. Then she looked down again, flipping through the file with purpose now, like she was following a trail. "And then," she said slowly, "there's this." My lawyer stiffened beside me. My father frowned. "What is that?" The judge looked up, glasses back on now. "And a lien attempt," she said, "filed last year against your daughter's business." The room seemed to tilt. My father's head snapped toward me. "What?" I stared back, stunned. "I didn't know," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. The judge nodded, eyes still on the document. "It was rejected," she said, "for lack of standing." My father's face went red. "That's not—" "Mr. Carter," she said sharply, cutting him off, "did you attempt to place a lien on your daughter's business without her knowledge?" He hesitated. Just for a second, but it was enough. The judge looked at him like she'd just found the missing piece of a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. I felt something else then, too. Not just relief, not just fear. Recognition. This wasn't about the shop, or the car. It never had been. It was about control. The judge set the file down, hands resting on top of it. She looked at me again, and her voice softened just a touch. "Miss Carter," she said, "how long have you owned your business outright?" "Since the day I opened it," I said. She nodded. Then she looked back at my father. "Ownership," she said, "requires proof, authority, consent, and respect." The word hung there, heavy and undeniable. My father's jaw clenched. His lawyer whispered frantically again, but he didn't respond. The judge leaned forward slightly. "And before I rule," she said, "there's one more question I need answered." She looked down at the file, then up, her eyes locked on my father. "Why," she asked, "did you wait 6 years to make this claim?" My heart started pounding again, louder than before, because I already knew the answer, and I had a feeling she was about to say something that would change everything. I gripped the edge of the table, the wood cool under my fingertips, as the silence stretched once more, thick and suffocating, waiting for him to explain himself.
My father didn't answer right away. That was new. He'd always had an answer, even when he was wrong. Especially when he was wrong. Silence was never his thing. Silence meant weakness. Silence meant someone else got to fill the space. The judge waited. She didn't rush him. She just watched, like she knew time itself was on her side. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Because," he said slowly, "she didn't need to be reminded until now." I felt that land before I fully understood it. The judge's eyebrows lifted just slightly. "Reminded of what?" "That she didn't do this alone," he said. "That she owes something." There it was. Owes. I felt my chest tighten, memories stacking up fast, every holiday with strings attached, every favor logged like a debt, every compliment followed by a reminder of what he'd done for me once, years ago, like it never expired. The Lees leaned back again. "Mr. Carter," she said, "this court is not a collection agency for parental resentment." A couple people in the gallery shifted. Someone let out a breath that might have been a laugh, quickly swallowed. My father bristled. "That's not what this is." "Then explain it," she said, "because from where I'm sitting, you waited until your daughter's business became successful, profitable, visible, and only then did you step forward to claim ownership." My lawyer's hand brushed mine under the table. Steady. Grounding. My father shook his head. "She changed," he said, and his voice cracked, not enough to sound vulnerable, just enough to sound offended. "She stopped listening. She stopped needing me." I stared at him. There was a time that would have crushed me, a time I would have apologized right there, promised to call more, promised to shrink back into the version of myself that fit better in his world. But sitting there, in that courtroom, with my name on the documents and my hands shaking not from fear but from adrenaline, all I felt was clarity. The judge tilted her head. "Children are supposed to stop needing their parents," she said. "That's not abandonment, that's adulthood." My father scoffed. "Easy to say when you're the one being pushed aside." I couldn't stop myself. "You didn't get pushed." Every head turned. My lawyer inhaled sharply, but didn't stop me. The judge looked at me. "Go on." I swallowed. My mouth was dry, but the words were there, lining up like they'd been waiting for permission. "You walked away," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "When I told you I was opening the shop, you said it was a mistake. When I asked for advice, you told me not to risk embarrassing myself. When I worked 2 jobs to keep it open, you said I was proving your point." My father stared at me like I'd betrayed him. "And now," I continued, "that it works, you want it back." Silence. The judge nodded slowly, once. She said, "Thank you." She turned back to my father. "Do you dispute her account?" He opened his mouth. Closed it. I watched something else happen then, something quieter but just as telling. His lawyer stopped fidgeting, stopped whispering. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the ceiling like a man doing math he already knew the answer to. The judge folded her hands. "Mr. Carter," she said, "this court is prepared to rule." My pulse spiked. She glanced at the clock. "But before I do, I want to address one more issue raised by these filings." My father stiffened. She tapped the stack of papers again. "Your attempted lien was not only improper, it may constitute harassment." "What?" he snapped. I flinched at the sharpness of his tone even now. Some reflexes die hard. The judge's voice hardened. "You attempted to assert a financial claim with no legal basis. You did so without notifying the business owner. and you did so after being advised, in writing, that you had no standing." She paused. "That raises questions." My lawyer leaned forward. "Your Honor." The judge raised her hand. "I'm aware this is not the motion before me today, but context matters." She looked at my father again. "Do you dispute filing that lien?" His face flushed deeper. "I was protecting my interests." "You had none," she said flatly. The words hit like a gavel all by themselves. I felt lightheaded, like the floor had dropped an inch and my body hadn't caught up yet. The judge exhaled slowly. "Here is what is going to happen." I held my breath. She glanced at the clock. "This court finds no legal basis for your claim of ownership over Miss Carter's business or her vehicle. Both remain solely hers." My fingers curled into my palm. "Furthermore," she continued, "any future attempts to assert ownership or financial control without evidence may result in sanctions." My father's eyes widened. "Sanctions?" "Yes," she said, "including fines." The room felt unreal, like I was watching a scene play out on a screen instead of living inside it. The judge gathered her papers. "This matter is resolved." The gavel came down. It was done, but it didn't feel over. People stood. Chairs scraped. Voices murmured. My lawyer squeezed my hand. "You did great," she whispered. I nodded, numb. My father turned towards me then, fully, no judge between us now. His eyes burned. "This isn't over," he said under his breath. I met his stare. "It is for me." He laughed, short and bitter. "You think a piece of paper changes anything?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He brushed past me, shoulder clipping mine just slightly, like he wanted me to feel it. Then he was gone. I stood there for a moment longer, the courtroom emptying around me, the echo of the judge's words still ringing in my ears. Ownership, consent, respect. Outside, the light was too bright. The sky stretched open and blue, like the world hadn't noticed what had just happened inside that building. My lawyer talked about next steps, about paperwork, about following up. I nodded at the right moments, but my mind was already somewhere else. Because as I reached into my bag for my keys, I noticed something folded and tucked into the side pocket where I didn't remember putting it. An envelope. Plain. White. My name written on the front in handwriting I knew better than my own. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. My lawyer noticed. "What's that?" "I don't know," I said. But I did. I waited until I was alone in my car before opening it. My car. I sat there, engine off, hands shaking as I slid the paper out. It was a copy of something. A document. Old. Yellowed at the edges. And at the top, in bold letters, were the words, "Trust Agreement." My breath caught. Below it, names. His and mine. Dated years ago, around the time my mother died. I felt the ground shift all over again. Because suddenly, the question wasn't whether my father had tried to take what was mine. It was what else he'd been holding on to all these years. And why now, he wanted me to find out.
I sat there for a long time with that envelope in my lap, the paper inside heavier than it had any right to be. Cars passed, someone laughed somewhere, life kept moving like nothing had cracked open. A trust. I read the first page once, then again, slower the second time, like if I took it carefully enough, the words might rearrange themselves into something less destabilizing. They didn't. The trust had been created after my mother died. Her name was there too, typed neatly like she'd signed off on it herself. Assets listed in broad, almost vague language. Future business interests. Personal property acquired thereafter. It was written to mature when I turned 35. I was 32. And the trustee? My father. My throat tightened. Of course it was. I flipped the page, my fingers numb now. There were clauses about discretion, about management, about authority to act in the beneficiary's best interest. Best interest. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound that startled me in the quiet car. That's what this was. Not desperation, not entitlement, timing. The shop wasn't just successful, it was growing. There were talks, offers, nothing official yet, nothing I'd even said out loud. But my father had always had a sixth sense for momentum. He could smell opportunity the way some people smell rain. And he was running out of time. I folded the papers back into the envelope and drove home on autopilot, my hands tight on the wheel, my mind racing ahead and behind all at once. Every memory felt suspect now. Every suggestion, every question about revenue, every time he'd asked, just casually, "So, what's next for the business?" I barely slept. By morning, I'd made an appointment with a different attorney, one my father had never met. She was younger than I expected, sharp-eyed, hair pulled back in a way that meant business. She didn't interrupt while I explained. She just listened, flipping through the trust documents with a calm that made my pulse slow just a little. "This is real," she said finally. "I know." "No," she corrected gently. "I mean, it's enforceable, but it's not absolute." I leaned forward. "What does that mean?" She said, "Your father's authority is limited, and it may already be compromised." I blinked. "How?" She tapped the page. "A trustee has a duty, loyalty, transparency, acting in good faith. Attempting to seize assets outside the trust without disclosure could be considered a breach." Something cold and electric slid through me. "He tried to take my business," I said quietly. "Yes," she said, "and now we can ask whether he did that to protect you or to protect himself." The question hung there, unanswered. Over the next few weeks, things unraveled fast. Letters, notices, requests for accounting. My father didn't respond at first. Then he did, through his lawyer, defensive, indignant, hurt, always hurt. He called me one night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "You're overreacting," he said, voice tight. "This is family business. You don't need outsiders poisoning your mind." I deleted it. The shop felt different now. Every wall, every shelf, every late-night decision I'd made there felt like evidence, proof of work, proof of ownership, proof of me. Then one afternoon, my attorney called. "There's something you should see," she said. We met in her office. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were emails I'd never been copied on, communications between my father and a financial advisor, discussions about restructuring, about liquidity events, about positioning assets before maturity. Before me. "He was planning to move things," I whispered. She nodded. "Or already has." The air felt thin. That night, I stood in my shop long after closing, lights off, street glow filtering in through the windows. I thought about my mother, about what she would have wanted, about whether she'd trusted him or whether she'd tried quietly to protect me in the only way she could. The trust wasn't a gift, it was a warning. A few days later, I ran into my father by accident, a coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods. He looked older, smaller, or maybe I just wasn't looking up at him anymore. He smiled like nothing had changed. "There you are." I didn't sit. "Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed like I was exhausting him. "Because you would have panicked like you are now. You tried to take my business." "I tried to manage what was always meant to be managed," he said sharply. "You think you understand everything because you've had a little success?" "A little?" I asked. His eyes flashed. "You wouldn't have any of it without me." There it was again. I felt oddly calm. "I don't own you," I said. "You never did." His smile vanished. "Be careful," he said. "You don't know what you're risking." I held his gaze. "Neither do you." We parted without another word. Now the shop is still mine. The car is still mine. On paper, for now. But the trust is ticking. There are filings pending, questions unanswered, money that moved where it shouldn't have, a judge who may recognize a pattern where I once saw only a personality, and sometimes, late at night, I wonder whether my father left that envelope for me as a threat or a challenge, because whatever happens next won't be decided by blood. It'll be decided by what finally comes to light, and something tells me we've only just started digging. And as I lock up the shop every night now, I can't help but wonder, when the truth finally comes out, will it free me completely, or expose just how far my own father was willing to go to claim what was never his?